Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. We'll continue with the advanced if functions. If you're yet to see the previous video, the link is in the description box below. Now, before we move on to the next function, let's take a look at our data. Here is the list of the US president, their party, previous office, and term in office. First, a quick refresher of SUMIFS. Let's sum the total number of years Republican, Democratic, and Independent presidents spent in office. The syntax for SUMIFS has three arguments: the range, the criteria, and the sum range. Simply put, it's asking where do you want to look, what do you want to look for, and where are the cells to sum. Now let's name our ranges. Highlight the column. You can watch the previous video to learn more about naming a cell or range in Excel. So highlight the column and type party, enter. Let's repeat the same for previous office and term. Let's sum the total number of years Republican presidents spent in office. Sum if, what's the range? Party. Hit enter once it pops up. What's the criteria? Republican. And what's the sum range? Term. And hit enter. Let's drag this down. We mention here that similar to the COUNTIFS function, the SUMIFS function allows the use of wildcard characters to find a character or a series of characters. To learn more about Excel wildcard characters, there's a link to the previous video in the description box below. Let's take a look at Democratic. In our data, we have Democratic with an hyphen and Democratic without an hyphen. The SUMIFS function has only summed Democratic without an hyphen. Now to work around that, all we have to do is to add the asterisk wildcard character. So the SUMIFS function is able to sum up all the cells that have a partial match with Democratic. There you go. Now we have the correct sum. Let's move on to the SUMIFS function. While the SUMIFS function tests only one criteria, the SUMIFS function tests multiple criteria. The syntax for the SUMIFS function is simply asking, where are the cells to sum? Where is the first range you want to look? What is the first criteria you want to look for? Then it moves on to the second pair. Where is the second range you want to look? What is the second criteria you want to look for? You can test up to 127 criteria using this function. Let's move on to the example. SUMIFS, what's our sum range? Please note here that the sum range comes first under the SUMIFS function, unlike the SUMIFS function where the sum range comes after the criteria. Where's our sum range? Term. What's the first criteria range? Party. What's the first criteria? Republican. What is the second criteria range? Previous office. What is the second criteria? Governor. You would see here that I've made use of the wildcard characters. Now we can drag this down. Let's add a little twist to this. Let's sum the total number of years Republican presidents who were not former governors spent in office. How do we modify our criteria? As a refresher, let me take you through some relational operators in Excel. We have less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and not equal to. So we'll be making use of the not equal to relational operator. Remember, if you are typing this directly into this formula, it has to be in quotes. But given that I'm using cell references, I'm just going to type this directly into the cell and drag this down. So Republican presidents who were not formally governors spent 64 years in office. Democratic 52 and independent. You can try your hands on this example. I'll put the link to download this workbook in the description box below. Let's take a quick look at the average if function. The average if function has three arguments: the range, the criteria, and the range of cells you want to average. Simply put, it's asking where do you want to look, what do you want to look for, and where are the cells you want to average. Let's calculate the average number of years Republican, Democratic, and Independent presidents spent in office. Average if, what's our range? Party, the criteria, Republican, and the range of cells we want to average, term. I'll just format this quickly, drag it down, and that's it. Let's move on to average ifs. Unlike the average if function, the average ifs function can test multiple criteria. The syntax for the average ifs function is asking, where are the cells to average? Then what is the first range you want to look at? What is the first criteria you want to look for? Then it moves on to the second pair. Where is the second range you want to look? And what is the second criteria you want to look for? You can test up to 127 criteria using this function. Please note that the average range comes before the criteria under this function. Let's go right into the example. Average ifs. What's the average range? Term. What's the first criteria range? Party. What's the first criteria? Republican. What's the second criteria range? Previous office. What's the second criteria? Vice president. Let's drag this formula down. If there are no cells that meet all the criteria, the average if function returns a devo error. To work around this, all we have to do is to nest our formula in the if error function. So go to the formula bar, if error. If our formula returns an error, we want it to return 0. Close the bracket and hit enter. Let's copy this down. There you have it, guys. In the next video, you'll learn more about MAXIFS and MINIFS. Click the bell icon below to get a notification. Please subscribe, share the video, and hit the like button.